You are on the brink. You are on the brink. You are on the brink.
Warning. Warning. Proceed at your own risk. We are now entering the underground. The algorithm has no power here. Your eyes and ears are vulnerable. Prolonged exposure may cause psychological damage. If you experience symptoms, return to the surface at once. Welcome to the Brink Film Club.
Welcome to the Brink Film Club, and today we have a guest, Chris Peters, who directed The Place Between.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I love Tucson, and I've been out here many times, and it's I wanted to see the festival in real life, and boy, what a great festival it is.
So what made you want to get into filmmaking? Well,
I'm an artist, and I have things I want to say, and I first did it with painting. I went to a sort of a Rembrandt-style art school for 3 years, and I started making paintings, and people thankfully started buying them. But when the digital revolution came around 2012, I realized that I could also start making movies. I live in Los Angeles, which is very much a movie town, and so it's just sort of in the air there. And so I started making stuff. I had the opportunity to be on the set when they were shooting a television pilot, so I could see the cheat, the technique that no one knows, which I will tell you, which is what you know, which is they make those poor actors say the same thing 30 times in a row. They put the camera in one place and then they move it to another place, and every time they act surprised or shocked or anything, they're just doing it again and again.
Wow. So what inspires you? I mean, there's certain movies, there's something out there that inspires you to go out and shoot, to create film, to create this. What's your inspiration?
All the paintings and movies are this theme of vanitas, which is the brevity of life, and how we're only on this earth, everyone, rich and poor, for a very short period of time. And they act as reminders, I guess, to people for that. So they're a little depressing, I suppose. But for some reason, I feel I'm a very happy, outgoing guy. But all my movies and paintings are about that same theme of loss and sort of a quiet melancholy.
I mean, do you have a favorite film? Do you have?
Oh, of course. Oh, my God. So there's this director I just found out about. I don't know if people have heard of him. He's called Fellini.
Oh, okay, that guy.
That guy. Yeah, that Fellini guy.
Definitely.
And I saw 8.5, and I went, my God, this is such an experimental movie. What an experimental movie, and what an amazing movie 8.5 is. And then La Dolce Vita with that bittersweet ending at the beach in that movie. It's just incredible. And then Knights of Calibra, I forget where, I always say the Italian wrong.
Yeah.
What a crazy ending on that one. So I can't do anything close to what he does, but boy, is he inspiring.
Oh, yeah. I saw 8.5. I was really inspired by that movie.
Yeah, it was like, yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. You ever see, was it Day for Night?
No.
Oh, you should watch that.
Oh, okay.
That's another filmmaker movie. And it's so good. You would actually like it quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the same vein, but, it's excellent film. Anything new that's come out that you like film-wise? Anything that you're like, I saw this movie and I think...
Well, again, the same thing. I'm the king of low-budget filmmaking. It's very, very important not to spend any money making these movies so that you can continue to make them. And when Godzilla -1 came out, I was so impressed because someone said it was a $15 million budget, and their answer was, I wish. And that won an Oscar for Best Special Effects. What a great movie.
Actually, I think it won for sound, which when I was in the theater watching it, I was blown away by the sound design in that movie. Yeah. It was probably, for the budget they had and everything, it exceeded the $100-300 million movies.
Yeah. I got to see
that they spent so much on their sound. They had minimal amount of budget on their sound, and they had a sound that I was like, I was hearing the roar of the Godzilla, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. And it was well deserved. That Oscar was very well deserved.
I got to see it in the Chinese theater on Hollywood Boulevard, and boy, what a fun experience that whole thing was. Another movie I just got to see at the Chinese theater on Hollywood Boulevard was Maxine, which I absolutely loved, and what a tribute to that guy. All three of them, Pearl and X and Maxine, just so interesting and so what an amazing actress and author.
I know.
Oh my God. So those, I guess, would be the two of people I think that are kind of got it going on right now.
Oh yeah. And I mean, there's movies like they're like Long Legs and things like that are coming out that are actually like getting people like okay, there's I think horror or some sort of thing is like having kind of it seems to have somewhat of a resurgence now of like certain things. Obviously, it's not the films you make. You're a little more
mine experimental. Yeah.
But so anything experimental maybe you've seen over the past year that you liked?
Well, let me think. There's just other ones over the years. There's this really old one which is almost unwatchable, but sometimes the unwatchable ones are inspiring because you go, if they made that movie, then maybe I could make that movie. So it's pretty famous. It's called Begotten.
Oh yeah, Begotten. Yeah.
Incredible high contrast, black and white, like so high contrast you can barely see what's happening.
Yeah.
And I realized in that movie that the audience doesn't necessarily need to know what's going on. They just need to believe the people in the movie know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then they'll go along for the ride.
Yeah. I don't think that's ever gotten a proper release.
I got this weird DVD of it.
I mean, it's like somehow it seems to be begotten. It seems to be like literally forgotten. And not a lot of people are... Yeah, I mean...
It's hard to even get a copy.
I know, but I don't know why. And a lot of people I know like that movie. And it's
I don't know if I like it.
Well, I mean, like it enough where they want to watch.
I'm
and they want to
inspired by
check
it. Absolutely, yeah.
I think it needs to go back out somewhere into some sort of realm. Maybe a Criterion Channel wants to pick it up. Something, where people can watch it. So
100%.
Yeah. So anything in the future? I know you got a film in the festival, but anything that's interesting that's coming up?
I'm playing with this children's video camera that was made by Fisher-Price in 1987 called the Pixel 2000. And it was an experimental filmmaker's dream. It generates begotten-like images all by itself. And I'm finishing up a short one using that, and
I'm excited to check that one out. Actually, I'm excited to check it out. I'm excited to see what you're going to come up with this camera.
Yeah, exactly. But I always keep making stuff. Right now, I have a painting show coming up next year that I have to get some paintings done for. The life of an artist is a little bit different when you have a gallery. They need a certain number of paintings on a certain day, and they have to be ready to hang, and you don't miss.
Yes.
So
very true.
So I got that. I got.
When is that happening? When is the gallery show?
I think they're still deciding, but it's next summer.
Okay. Wow.
So I got some time to paint these things. But as soon as I go back to LA, I'll start painting the first one actually.
No.
And then I'm just thinking, I did some experiments using 2 GoPros to make a 3D camera setup. And it worked really well. And all my friends and family that I show my experiments to were all saying, yeah, you got to do that. So something around a carnival. I need a carnival. I think 3D movie at a carnival. That
sounds pretty cool.
I think it would work, right?
It sounds great.
Yeah. So I actually looked to see if Tucson had a carnival, and they did, but they banned GoPros in the carnival. It was one of the few cameras listed that no GoPros.
That's so weird. Is it because of like certain rides they don't want this? There's something like GoPro or something, and then
well, maybe you can sneak them in. I don't know.
Oh, you can totally. I mean, they're small enough. You can totally sneak them in.
But I want to I really love Hispanic culture too, and so I would love to have that kind of that Day of the Dead vibe kind of going.
Oh yeah. And Day of the Dead here is pretty huge. So.
Yeah, well maybe that's kind of a carnival.
Yeah,
maybe
they usually have a huge party at the end of the night or whatever. I will say this: it's come a little more commercialized, but it's still kind of a homegrown in a lot of ways of what they're doing. So, so it's not too bad. So, definitely something you could do some 3D.
Yeah, we're gonna plan this movie on your podcast.
That'd be great. So yeah. Well, thank you for being here.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Today we have the director of HURRICANE F.Y.T. Do you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Ara Ball, native from Montreal. Been making movies for 10 years. It's my second feature film. And it's a French Québécois movie. I'm half French. So there goes the inclination to making a movie that happens in Montreal. But I guess it's kind of unusual for somebody who's bilingual to make just like a purely Québécois movie. So yeah, it was fun. I've been developing it for about 8 years. So to get the financing to finally make it was really cool.
So what made you want to make this movie? What was the idea behind it? The whole,
I think there's a side of Montreal that is sort of less existing, still kind of exists. But I think with the schwa, which is the way people speak, the trashiness of Montreal, everything that happens kind of in the streets, the way that people are, I think that the openness, the rawness, the punk rock of Montreal as well. I felt like we never really saw that in movies. So that's why I applied for the institutions. I felt like culturally it's something that's significant to our city and something that a lot of people might not know about our city as well. So I wanted to capture that as well. And when the movie came out, there's a lot of punkers that came to see the movie. And I think they found a connection with that movie because there's music from the States, but there's also a lot of bands from Montreal as well. So it was important to give a sense of identity for what Montreal was, and also the street kids that lived in Montreal in the 80s and 90s. And that's something I want to show that I think was important because we didn't really have that, we didn't have that in cinema anyways.
What got you into filmmaking? Was there a particular movie? What was your inspiration for just making movies in general?
Well, I think my grandmother, it starts with my grandma because she showed me movies when I was really young. So, and I always really liked movies, but then she really got me into, classics like Goodfellas and Citizen Kane, but I was young. And Harold and Maude, I was 12 years old. So, that started off. And then I started sharing movies with movies like Easy Rider and Clockwork Orange with teachers. Actually, they would lend me VHS tapes when I was 13 years old. So I'd listen to that. And our culture in Montreal, we just have really good movies, really good filmmakers here. So, growing up in movies like Léolo, which is an incredible movie. If anyone wants to see one of the greatest Canadian movies, that's a great one. I think it just made sense for me to go in there. And I think I always had that sort of curiosity to understand the world. And I felt like what better way than movies, because it really shows you kind of life, but through many lenses. And music, especially music's a big part of my life. So having music and film, it was just natural for me to get in there and make the type of movies that I make.
Is there a particular filmmaker that inspires you? Or maybe a couple. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard for me to say just one, but is there one or two, or just,
I think after knowing, right now I'm into Robert-Bresson, but I don't think that's necessarily who I got into. I think I liked all the classic filmmakers, but then I really started getting into John Waters and Russ Myers and Harmony Korine. And I really enjoyed these filmmakers that were sort of dealing with taboo subjects, but they felt very free in the way that they were telling their movies. Yeah. And I think I was very inclined to go in that direction too. And I think that's sort of what I don't want to speak about myself that way, but sort of what I represent for our city is kind of doing the edgier work, the stuff that's out there. Yeah. Hence why I think you chose the film for the program. Oh. But filmmakers like that really, I think they speak to me. There's a sense of freedom. And I think that's really important as an artist, is to, as long as everybody's being treated well, I think it's important to be free and not hold yourself any limits. And that was important for me when making this movie. It was just like, go all the way with that. I'm really happy the institutions jumped on and allowed me to sort of have a carte blanche with my movie and play with it, in those danger zones. But obviously, the little kid was protected. Everything around the movie and the way we made it was legit. But yeah, I definitely pushed the envelope as far as I could, because I felt like that was important to tell the story the way that I needed to tell it.
Yeah. So obviously this has a lot of musical influences in this. Is there any sort of band or any sort of like musician that you listen to and you write, or you think when you're directing, or something that might, because like I said, this has a great soundtrack. So
yeah, I love punk. I mean, I was listening to punk when I was really young, and then I kind of gave it up in my 20s. Yeah, it's amazing with punk. I just think there's something so cool about it and so different, and it's not polished. And I think that's why maybe we tend to leave and listen to other things and come back, because there's something that just feels so real and raw about it. And also the music of the early 80s, I have a friend that always tells me, I think the reason why you like that is that it's very cinematic, and there's something extremely cinematic, I think, about old punk rock. The sounds, you can feel the textures, you feel where these kids were and what they were singing about. Most of these people that made this music, they were young. And so I had the music while I was writing, playing all the time. I brought it on set before we shot. So it was a big part of me, and it was a big part of the movie, and it was a big part of what I wanted to tell. And I discovered a lot of really cool music. Obviously, I have like the classics from, Descendants and Minor Threat and The Exploited, which was really important just because I wanted to have the movie be somewhat like internationally accessible for people who aren't familiar with the music that came from Montreal. But I discovered while editing, all these really cool bands like the 222s and the Asexuals, which really have only been discovered by a few thousand people. And most people don't know these bands, and the songs are just awesome. So it was really cool to be able to dive into that. Yeah, but the movie's, I think, in part musical in that way too. The music helps tell the story. So I felt like that was really important, because most people don't understand the lyrics in punk rock, and obviously you do. And I think people who love that, but you can feel it. And so when writing it, there was a lot of philosophy in punk music that was really important to bring into the movie. So yeah, they work hand in hand.
Oh yeah. I could tell. Yeah, definitely. So what do you have lined up? I know this thing's just kind of coming out, this movie, but do you have any things lined up after this, or you're thinking about doing, or?
Yeah, I'm in development right now with 2 feature films. I'm doing a little short and a TV show. So that's really fun. And I'm really with new teams, good teams, and the same co-writer as well as L'Ouragan. She's with me on one of the projects. So it's really fun. I'm going somewhere a bit different too. I think I'm going to try to stay away from the punk landscape a little bit and go into something. I just think like mentally we're in a really interesting time right now. And I think we're all like very interior with ourselves. So that's sort of something I want to discover and kind of still have my signature, but maybe make stuff that's a little less underground and maybe like a little more mainstream. Not that I want to sell out or anything. I just feel like I want to do something different.
Yeah, no, I mean, as an artist, you always want to explore certain areas and go in certain directions. It's evolving, and I think as an artist, it's important to evolve and to do different things. I mean, I used to make movies back in the day, and I did something horror, and then I wanted to do something really different, and then it's just you want to go in so many different directions. And yeah, I'm totally looking forward to your next film. So yeah, so you definitely got a fan here. So what do you know that?
Awesome. That means a lot to me.
Yeah. We welcome Jane Clark, director of Witchy Ways.
Okay, so my name is Jane Clark, and I'm a filmmaker. I'm a writer, director, producer, editor, sort of all in one. Have a couple features behind me. Made a movie called Meth Head back in the day, and made another feature called Crazy Bitches, then did a web series based on Crazy Bitches, and now I have Witchy Ways.
Oh, cool. Okay, so what made you get into filmmaking? What was your, you've been in the filmmaking for a while, I noticed. Way back in your IMDb, it goes way back to 2003. So
yeah,
what kind of got you into it?
I was an actor, and I just got tired of doing things that turned out badly, to be perfectly honest. I made the last feature I did, it had a lot of promise. The director was a Nickel Fellowship winner, which is a big deal out in Hollywood. It's an industry thing. And I thought, this is going to be the one that's actually going to be decent and, go somewhere. And I just, when it was over, I just was so incredibly disappointed with all the way the elements came together. As like the actors all did their job, that the editing at times was bad, the music was awkward. There were just so many things that could have been done better. And then I just thought to myself, if you think you can do better, why don't you just try? And if you fail, then stick with acting. And if you succeed, then maybe this is where you're supposed to be. And that's basically how I got into it.
So when you make a movie, what inspires you? Like, what, as a filmmaker, certain films, certain styles, certain writing? I mean, what inspires you when you're behind the camera? I mean, we all see it as an art form.
It's different for every film. I've been inspired in the past. A lot of my initial shorts were inspired by events in my real life. Things that happened to me that struck me as, something that other people could relate to, and something that I wanted to talk about. And then as it went along, it sort of morphed. I had a short film that was part of a competition, and you had to sort of fit into parameters, so I wanted the money to make a short film, so I fit into their parameters to do it. But in the process was inspired by the story I discovered. And then sometimes it's just like some random thing. Like Crazy Bitches was inspired because a friend of mine, we were at lunch and she said something to me that was like kind of mean, but she didn't mean it. She was talking about herself, but in trying to build herself up, she kind of knocked me down a little bit. And I thought, women do that all the time, and that sucks. So that kind of got me going on Crazy Bitches. And, and Meth Head was inspired by people in my brother-in-law passed away from complications of a meth addiction. One of my dear friends had disappeared from my life and had just come back into my life after having gotten through a meth addiction. So those two things, came together to inspire me to tell that story. Witchy Ways was just sort of an offshoot. Miriam Hassler, who plays Danny in the movie, she plays the witch. She's a good friend of mine, and she came to town. COVID was sort of in a pocket where you could go out to a bar. And so we met for drinks, and she's like, Jane, I bought a red camera, and I've got a great DP, and I've got a great producer. Let's make a movie. And I was like, okay, let's make a movie. Why not? And then I was like, crap, I got to write something, what am I going to write? So initially I was like, well, I was sort of into witches at the time. So I was like, I'm still into witches, but I was like watching just Discovery of Witches, and it was in my brain. And I thought, okay, I'll do a witch, but then I think I need something sort of supernatural or something that could move towards horror. So I'll put a ghost in there. I love ghost stories. And I'll write something for Miriam to star in. And then I wrote like 30 pages, and I was just like, oh, this is awful. Like I'm trying to, I didn't have that inspiration I normally have, that root that gets me going. And so in that case, I just started watching a ton of movies. I watched everything I could find with a ghost story in it. And then I started watching a bunch of witch stories, and they were all so dark, and there was something about it that just, I didn't feel like being dark at the time. I don't know why, but I stumbled, you do the list of movies and then you get a list of other movies to watch, and Practical Magic popped up, and I rewatched it and remembered how much I loved that movie when I first saw it. And so I thought, this feels good to me. And then I just watched a bunch of other, 90s witch movies like The Craft and Witches of Eastwick and, that whole thing. But that's where that inspiration comes from. But that was an aberration, really, because normally at least there's something in my life that has triggered it. Okay. Once I latched onto it, then I found the personal cause, the personal things I wanted to talk to. But this was a different way in for me.
I see. So basically, you're saying a lot of your films, you kind of take from something that happens in your life or something that is going on at the time. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's great. I mean, a lot of people just write, and I came up with this great story. A lot of filmmakers tend to not do that, what you're doing, So I kind of like that you're doing that. You're kind of just getting this thing as inspiration, just what's around you and what you're encountering and what you're seeing. And
if I'm seeing it and I'm experiencing it, then other people must be. So it's a great way to actually make a film that other people can be inspired by or moved by or at least see themselves in somehow. I just think it's a better way to emotionally attach an audience anyway. And I need something to get me going. It has to be something I have to care. I can't just write a story. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I could tell you, there's a lot of thought, a lot of process in your films, and I like that quite a bit. And so, so what I saw that you made a series off a film. So where can people find the series? Where can people find,
Crazy Bitches?
Crazy Bitches.
Crazy Bitches is currently on a bunch of platforms, including Tubi.
Okay.
But I'm currently, so what I ended up doing, because Crazy Bitches got pirated really badly. We lost over 1 million downloads. It was bad. Yeah. And the series was a reaction to the loss of the feature, because we couldn't ever get back up. Our investors lost all their money, and there was no way to sort of claw back the losses and make up the difference. So I thought, well, maybe a web series, nobody steals web series, so maybe I can do something with that. So I cut the feature into season 1, and then I shot a season 2. So I did a brand new season 2. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the season 2 into a feature, and I'm gonna take the web series offline and put the back-to-back features up. I mean, I always wanted it to be a series. I was going to do Crazy, Crazier, and Craziest, and I always had this plan for a more of a sequel type thing for the feature films. But, so this will be my way of getting back to that. I have another feature written called Mommy's Behaving Badly, and was supposed to be the next one in the series. But so maybe I can regenerate, something off of that and get the third one going. Yeah,
exactly. Well, that was my other question. It's I mean, Witchy Ways is just hitting the festival circuit right now.
Yeah,
which is great. Obviously, it takes a little while to do that. But are you planning anything right now in the future?
Oh yeah, you can't. It's the one thing I learned. You can't wait. It takes so long to find financing. I mean, that's the thing. It's not the making of it necessarily. I mean, that takes time too. But finding money is the question mark around all of it. And I have a film. I've got $200,000 of a $350,000 budget. So I'm on my way. It's a psychological horror film about a guy who goes up to scatter his estranged father's ashes on a lake, and he falls into the lake and he doesn't realize that the lake is saturated with weaponized prions. Prions are what cause mad cow disease.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And he's on his own. He goes up there with his partner, but his partner has to go back home to deal with his mother, who is starting to act weird. And what they don't know is all the waterways have been infected by weaponized prions. And, you learn it as you go along, so it's not like giving anything away. But it's a really cool kind of like, it starts really charming and lovely, and bit by bit it starts looping into this crazy world where he doesn't know when he's sleeping, when he's awake. Is it a dream? Is it reality? Wow. It all starts blending until hopefully the audience doesn't know where they're at either at some point, And I've got plans for that. And then I have another film I wrote with my friend Guinevere Turner, who wrote American Psycho. And Guinevere and I wrote this script called Don't Come Over, and it's about this little romance novel writer who has paranoid personality disorder. And she accidentally kills her girlfriend at the beginning of the movie and buries her in the backyard because she doesn't think anybody will believe that it was an accident. And then she slowly starts going kind of a little bit nuts. And it's this whole, it's another psychological thriller, but dark comedy, more comedy in that one. Because I wrote that I wrote it with my style of, because I have a lot of comedy in all my stuff. Whereas the other one I wrote with my neighbor, and it was his original idea. So I kept with the tone that he had set. There's a little bit of humor, but it's not as funny as some of the stuff I've done in the past.
Yeah. Wow. I look forward to those. I totally do. So yeah. One last question. Would you, as a filmmaker being in the film business for so long, is there any advice you have for any up and coming filmmakers who are just getting out there? Let's say they just got out of film school and they want to just start making movies. Any sort of advice you have for that?
I think you just do that. You start making movies, I do believe that if you're going to start building a career, then from the first thing you do, you should be paying attention to the quality, to the post-finish work, have enough money to finish the film properly. That's like always something that, when you're starting out, you're like, I'm just going to go. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you don't have the money to do it right. And festivals care about that. They care about the sound of the quality of the sound and the image and all that stuff is along with the storytelling. But in that new phase, when you're just starting to go, okay, I'm going to make some movies, make some shorts where you can control it, explore, take a chance, do things that aren't necessarily going to make any money, because that's the time you can do that. Yeah. At some point, you want to make a career of it. You need to actually make a living. Then, things change. You have to think about who your cast is, and you have to think about, how you're going to sell it, and is there a market for it, or who's the audience? All of that stuff becomes super important when you get into feature filmmaking, where you need to make your money back. Or
as much as it's an art, it's also a business.
It's also a business. So true. Yeah. That's the line we walk. How do you stay inspired and still create a movie that you love, that is expressive in the way you want to be expressive, while also making sure there's a way for it to get out into the world, because investors don't want to invest in your movie because you're charming or it's great art. They need to see a return on investment, Exactly. So, and a lot of filmmakers, I think, forget that too when they get into it. They want to just do what they want to do. And I understand it. I mean, I was told from the beginning, you'll never make any money. And luckily the people invested in Meth Head invested in it because they had a personal reason to want to see the story made. Yeah. But it took a long time to actually start making money on that movie, because it was a hard sell. It was a super, super hard sell. So, you just have to bear all those things in mind. Make your passion project if you've got someone who's willing to fund it and doesn't care if they make their money back, but then start thinking about the economics.
Exactly. I think that's so important, that a lot of filmmakers don't understand, because when they go out and they get just like, let's shoot, let's do this. And they're just not thinking about you're in the end, you're going to have to try to sell this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the more people see it, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing people don't understand. They're like, oh, I'm just going to make it, and I just want people to see it. I don't care about the money. I don't, I hear that so often. And I'm like, okay, if that's your reality, that's fine. But actually, if you're not giving it away on YouTube, then you need people to pay, and you need to make money, because making money equates with eyeballs on the film. Yeah. And even if you want to put it up for free on YouTube, then you better have marketing money, because nothing gets out there in a big way. Most of the time, especially these days when it's a saturated world, nothing gets out there without marketing.
Yep.
So even if you don't care about making money, you've got to still have the finances to push it. Like there's just all this stuff that, when you're new, you're idealistic and it's great. It's beautiful to be idealistic. But if what you want is people to see it, you have to make a movie that can reach people. And there's a reason for them to want to watch it. Like that's, bottom line.
Well, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it. It was great.
Today, I'm welcoming Philip Sedgwick, a filmmaker who has directed the recent short film Unbridled that is playing at the Arizona Underground Film Festival. Philip, you want to say anything about yourself?
Well, let's see what to say about myself. Originally, I started out only as a writer, and that was because I was working on a novel, the great American novel, as it were. And I had a friend who was writing screenplays, and her screenplay was like 115 pages back in the day, the norm. And my novel was like 400 pages, and I wasn't even a third of the way through. So I'm thinking, what am I doing? And so I started writing screenplays. The second screenplay I wrote, the first draft of, placed in the Nicholl Fellowship. And that's when I decided, I needed a litmus test. Do I actually know what I'm doing, or am I, making it up? And so after that, I decided, I'm going to stick with this and keep this as a side gig. And, screenwriting is really difficult. I ended up doing a few shorts along the way. And then I was disenchanted with the directors. We had an incident where a director just didn't shoot the ending that I wrote, and we had to fix it in post. And so then I decided, maybe I should direct. And then I had a film, Zap, which actually won Arizona Underground a few years back, and I dreamt it. And I woke up the next morning and went, oh my God, that's a movie. No. And so we entered it into the Phoenix Film Festival, where it won. And my partner Leslie said, you know what, we got to make this film. And so we did. It was during COVID. Small cast, small crew, everybody masked up, except for the coyotes who howled in. And that was the first film I directed, and now it's off to the races. And, we're trying to do more short films to attract interest in our features and our feature scripts, and, get some of those moving into production, find a Prodco home.
So what has influenced you? What influenced you? I mean, I know you started out being a writer, but what influenced you, to even just write, honestly? I mean, a writer needs influences, but also filmmaking. I mean, as far as when you shoot a film, when you're making, what filmmakers do you think about? What films do you think about that helps you to
Well, what films I think about? I always come back to my number one film, Breaker Morant. I absolutely love that film. Years ago when I was in L.A., there was a screenwriting instructor that used to hang out in this coffee shop where I used to go. Great place. And he said, you've got to read the script, Breaker Morant. Best screenplay ever written. And so I read the script. I agreed. And, the movie and the end sequence of that film is one of the most beautiful filming sequences I've ever seen. It's just gorgeous.
I have not seen that movie. I need to watch it. Now it's going to be at the top of my list.
Bruce Beresford did it. And Bruce and I had a few emails a few years back, and he said, I couldn't get anybody interested in L.A. They said, nobody wants to see this film. So he found the money. He's an Australian bloke, and so he got the film produced and got nominated for Best Screenplay. Wow. So, and it's an amazing movie. It's about the Boer War.
Okay.
It's not a doc, but, it could be read as a doc, and it's just everything about it. It's brilliantly acted, brilliantly written. So that's kind of my litmus in terms of, this is what you want to aspire toward. And, basically the reason I do films is I'm arrogant enough to believe I've got something to say. I believe that the world needs to hear it. And the easiest way I can think of, other than, harassing people in the grocery store, is to make films.
Yeah. So I always thought there's two ways, just two types of filmmakers. Filmmakers that make movies for themselves, and filmmakers that make movies for everybody else.
Yeah.
And so it's like, which one do you fall under? Because as an art, it is an art form, obviously it's an art form. But as far as creating art, you're an artist who just I'm just going to paint because I want to do this. I want to I don't care who sees it, whatever. I need to do this to get this out. And there's other people I'm doing this. I hope everybody likes it. That kind of thing. Where do you think you fall in that kind of?
I think I fall more in I make films for other people. And I make films for other people because, again, I want to say certain things to people. It's hey, look, wake up. Think about it like this. Try not falling into the collective mainstream and the trends and, all of that, because that's just going to leave you feeling excluded. So I want to make films that have to do with people choosing to be included in life so that they don't have to feel excluded by everyone and everything and all of that. Now, I do have a film, Neon Cactus, which is a feature, which is based upon an experience I had in Vietnam. And I want to make this film, and I want to make it for me. No. But it's about healing post-traumatic stress, and it's about healing post-traumatic stress through alternative means. In fact, in the story, the guy heals his post-traumatic stress by talking to a saguaro cactus. Those of us who wander around in the desert in extreme heat know that this is an easy thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's you just talk to them, man. They'll tell you things. It's great. So that element is for me, but also it's got a message of, you don't have to be trapped in the main, this is the way that you have to do this. This is the way that you have to fix this.
Yeah.
And it's no, not necessarily. There are other ways.
Yeah. So as far as a next project, I know this one's just getting into the festival circuit. Are you looking to do more shorts and then do the feature? Are you looking to just let's see, maybe we can get a feature going?
I'm trying to look at a lot of different things. One, though I direct shorts and I kind of figured out what I'm doing, I don't feel ready to do a feature of the Neon Cactus variety. So I recently wrote a script called Yet Untitled, which is one that probably could be done in Tucson for under $1 million. But it would be close to $1 million.
Yeah.
And so I could direct that.
Yeah.
And so there's that. And in the meanwhile, I've got a couple of short films that I want to direct. The interesting project that I have that I really, really need to do is it's a short film, and it's called Pitch. And in that film, it's a proof of concept, but it's not a proof of concept. A proof of concept, you normally gear up with the cast and crew that you intend for the film and get investors, and then they get mad when you don't get the cast and all of that. Yeah. But what happens in this story is it's an acting coach and a writer meeting with a director, and the director kind of blows them off, but the acting coach has a story idea which she pitches to the writer. And so then the writer and she decide they're going to work together on this project. So the pitch is Neon Cactus. So she's actually pitching the script that I have written that's good to go. Yeah. And, if anybody out there in podcast land has $5 million they'd like to throw at us, we'd love to do this film. There's a tax incentive in Arizona now. We can capitalize on that. Exactly. And, oh, my God, would this film rock?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. It was great talking to you. So,
Thank you, David.
Now commencing our ascent back to the surface. If you want more content, visit brink.com. If you want less content, you are happy and well adjusted. Congratulations. Your hosts were David Pike and Veronica Chase. All art by Andrea Osoynik. Theme song by Josh Bill Humor. If you are angry, DM death threats at Brink Media on Instagram. If you are horny, also DM us. Thank you for your attention. You are free to go.